When I say the name Ultamate Joker, you're probably thinking of that nutcase I responded to regarding Insomniac Spider-Man, where he told Insomniac developers and fans to go off themselves. You might be thinking of when he said being gay is a bad practice to spread and compared it to smoking, and proceeded to complain about pride flags in video games. You might also be thinking about that time he made a smear video on myself and others, to which I responded to on my streams, and it eventually resulted in a stream discussion where we actually seemed to resolve everything and agreed to take down the content regarding the conflict to stand by the peace that was made. That lasted for about 6 months, until Ultimate Joker proved to us that he's not a man of his word, and is willing to lie about people out of some pent-up spite. I did a livestream with Gaming Rift, Comic Legend, Borgie, and some others who joined in to clown on his awful arguments against Superman and his hideously false accusations. I'm keeping the recap short because we've got a monster of a video to address and you can watch all of the prior material on your own time. But in order to immediately break the premise of this new video, there is zero evidence of myself, Gaming Rift, High CHD, or Colin defending James Gunn's actions that, from what I can tell, he apologized for years ago. You know you're cooked when you're making Colin look good in the situation, because despite my issues with him, he did not defend James Gunn, and I know you're including him here because he helped us expose Arachnid Youth, someone who explicitly stated and showed that he made a drawing that explicitly depicted Gwen from Into the Spider-Verse, who is 15 in the movie. But hey, it's not like Ultimate Joker cares about how deranged this is. He says, they're just drawings, therefore he doesn't care. Interesting how this is okay, but he fixates so much on tweets from James Gunn, when this is categorically worse. His pal Resikin, who you will see in this video, defends Ultimate Joker's position by saying he doesn't defend Arachnid Youth, but he simply thinks the criticism is overblown. Well, I don't know about you, but I usually don't say it's overblown criticism to condemn someone for making drawings of a 15-year-old character, because most of us know that's gross. Oh, wait a minute. Spider-Gwen is modeled off Haley Steinfeld according to Resikin here. First of all, they look nothing alike if you look at them. Second of all, it doesn't matter because Gwen is still a 15-year-old in the movie. So, you're beyond weird to use this point when people criticize drawings that, you know, depict her. She's 15. A child. Please stop defending this. So yeah, I think this gets a lot of claims out of the way and shatters Ultimate Joker and Resikin's credibility. They cannot be taken seriously whatsoever, and in fairness, this was obvious for many people remotely knowledgeable on the situation, so this response isn't really necessary, but it's more so feeding off another source of entertainment we can laugh at.
I'm doing this because I enjoy it.
As fun as it is to make fun of James Gunn's Superman movie underperforming and coming short of Man of Steel like all his other DC projects that failed to an even worse degree, we still need to have a serious talk about his dark, horrendous, vile track record that none of the small, medium, or large YouTubers are talking about.
Well, the reason for this is because my channel is a media discussion channel, not a deep dive into the people who make these works.
Or even acknowledging James Gunn is a racist PDF file that everyone turns a blind eye to, just because they may like his movies, which is ironic given that we also live in an age of cancel culture where various YouTubers and celebrities have been condemned whether the complaints be valid or not.
You do realize he lost his job at Marvel when this all surfaced? That's why it took a while for Guardians of the Galaxy 3 to even be made. While I don't defend the conduct in those images, I don't see how that's proof of racism or attraction to children due to lacking context for these images. I don't know if this is some actor's skit made in bad taste at this party, but if it is an act, that's not really evidence of his intent. By this logic, I'd have to call Topher Grace a racist for playing David Duke in BlacKkKlansman, even though his act seems more justified as it tells an important story compared to just some party filled with edgy and unfunny jokes. Regardless, the point being made is that proof of intent matters when making claims.
Only for Gunn's instances of extreme vile behavior to get looked over and even excused.
Well, I never excused the behavior. At most, I questioned the evidence you were using for specific claims, as I haven't fully dived into the situation myself, and I'm sorry if that offends you when I highlight when evidence isn't fully sufficient, but this is ideal when assessing claims. I did the exact same with Arachnid Youth. I didn't stand by any specific claims until the most concrete of evidence was found, because of course that matters. Speaking of which, showing that Gunn was named in a lawsuit doesn't actually prove anything. Anyone could be named in a lawsuit, that doesn't mean it was successful. If a lawsuit doesn't even make it to court, if there's no deposition or anything, then that tells me the case was dropped or dismissed for whatever reason. If you show me where this was proven in a court of law, we can maybe get somewhere. But I'm not seeing concrete evidence shown.
As James Gunn still stands to make millions of dollars and then somehow gets promoted to being the CEO of a deep, mature company like DC of all brands, despite his non-profitable goofball DC projects.
Well, Superman made more than many of those movies listed, and The Suicide Squad released during a pandemic, which is why it was also put onto streaming. So this is a bad example.
Along with him originally being fired by Marvel due to tweets about his vile behavior, such as pedophilia tweets, which as you will come to see is only the tip of the iceberg with Gunn.
Yeah, those tweets are pretty bad. Now just imagine if you drew art of characters in a gross manner. Oh wait, that's your friend who does that. Oh, and regarding the tweets, while I 100% condemn them for being in awful taste, I have proof that Resikin doesn't actually care about this conduct. Why? Well, here's a recent example of Resikin engaging in similar behavior. So I mentioned I was doing a stream on Ultimate Joker with the Gaming Rift, and Resikin has an interesting way of responding. Must stream down your face, R. Kelly style. Huh, well he specified R. Kelly style. What does he consider R. Kelly style? What could that mean? Oh. Well, looks like Resikin here is also making these types of jokes. So, in reality, he's no better than James Gunn's old tweets. He basically made one of them recently.
But even if it was just that, it doesn't at all change the fact that these losers will ignore it and come up with any excuse for it anyway.
Can I see one excuse any of us have made?
No, I didn't.
understand?
No, I
You
did
said
not.
that
Show me that. Show me that. Show me that right
All
now.
right.
Oh well, they're just words. They can't actually be linked to real crimes, one might say. Well, let us then talk about James Gunn's self-proclaimed best friend, Jimmy Uringer, better known to many as Jimmy Urine. Jimmy Urine, lead singer of the band Mindless Self-Indulgence, which sounds a lot like the new Superman movie, was formally accused in 2021 of and abusing a 15-year-old girl over an extended period of time. Now, you might say, well, you can't make someone guilty by association.
Sure, just because Gunn had him on the set of most of his films, even giving him a cameo in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, doesn't mean that Gunn was so close to him that he knew of his diddling pastimes. Except, here's the problem. The warning signs were all there, and Gunn was directly enabling his best friend Jimmy's sickening behavior. The details of this case are extremely graphic and disturbing, so I'm just going to summarize it for the purpose of this video, and it's not my intent to understate the gravitas of such a crime or disrespect its victims by glossing over everything, so if you want more details, I'll put some links for further reading in the description. So in short, in 2021, a case was launched against Jimmy Urine, James Gunn's best friend, for a 15-year-old girl into a years-long relationship when he was 27. During intercourse, he would tell her to act like a baby, suck her thumb, drool, or even pee her pants. She was a fan of the band, and what he basically did was tell her that what they had was special, as often do, when in reality it was parasitism and pedophilia. When she talked about wanting to make it public, he told her to hush up. The victim even mentioned that Jimmy was so brash about his dominance over her that he would even grope her in front of his bandmates and friends. Now, I can't say with 100% certainty, or even much certainty at all, that James Gunn was one of those friends who saw it take place over their years-long relationship of abuse, but what I can say is he was aware of his best friend's pedophilic tendencies, and even his very public fixation on it. How? Because in 1997, which was in the same time frame that Jimmy was this girl, he released a song called Panty Shot, where the main hook of the song is about going into a 5-year-old girl. Don't believe me? Well, look at this genius lyrics page, but I guess if it's all for fun and jokes, or better yet, done by people associated with people you like, then it has nothing to do with actual pedophilia, right?
I had to skip around a bit to jump to when Rusican actually dives into the evidence, and I assume this is one of the things that these people are so hot on me to acknowledge and see. For starters, the case against this Jimmy Urine character seems pretty awful, and assuming what I just heard was true, I don't think this guy should have any involvement in one of the biggest Marvel productions. On the flip side, the only argument Rusican makes for why Gunn should have noticed the signs is the gross lyrics he has in his song, but those are lyrics and therefore words, not proof of actual behavior, so it would fall into the same category of James Gunn's edgy tweets, alongside the Discord message you sent to us. A statement can be edgy and disgusting, but also not be proof of actual behavior. When I point out how weird and gross it is for people to make rape jokes about certain people, I never call them rape apologists or rapists, because that wasn't an admission of conduct, that was said as some tasteless joke, so this isn't a very strong argument for why James Gunn should have known of his private behavior.
Well, in that same court case, Jimmy Urine was mentioned as having attended one of James Gunn's infamous parties. Party, what is that? Something P. Diddy might have hosted? Actually, no. And you might be surprised hearing this in connection with someone who isn't Donald Trump's best friend or P. Diddy, but James Gunn was hosting parties before it was cool. As you can see in these images, Gunn hosted a To Catch a Predator themed party where he and his friends, one of those friends being Jimmy Urine, dressed up as pedophiles and their abuse victims. Hilarious, right?
Okay, so you're telling me that this is an act he did to reenact a TV show? That's still not evidence of actual behavior where he exploits minors. And don't get me wrong, I find this gross and in poor taste as well, since, as I recall, that show involves actual victims, so making jokes like this, recreating these events, is in really poor taste, so I wouldn't blame someone for disliking James Gunn because of that. But this doesn't prove that James Gunn himself exploited minors or enabled his friends to do that. So, how far can we take this?
And what an interesting coincidence that one of those attendees turned out to be an actual pedophile.
But notice how you have to use language like "turned out to be," as if there wasn't sufficient evidence released until later. But hey, it can't be as coincidental as you associating with Arachnid Youth today, despite knowing he's a 15-year-old character, whereas there isn't proof of James Gunn knowing of Jimmy Urine's behavior.
Jimmy even allegedly abused the child while at that party, but since that claim is based more on rumors than actual documented evidence, it cannot alone be decisively used to condemn James Gunn. Call me crazy, but I wouldn't be shocked if not just Jimmy Urine, but most of the people who dress up for those kind of parties happen to be actual files.
So you acknowledge the party isn't sufficient evidence. I'm glad we agree.
Just like how his best friend Jimmy Urine wrote lyrics about himself going into a 5-year-old girl as a joke, James Gunn wrote a book where the main character himself, literally named James Gunn, talks about not wanting to have kids because they're cute little animals that you want to have with, but should control yourself around. That's near verbatim from The Toy Collector, as you can see on screen. Are you guys noticing the pattern between Gunn and his best friend yet? Anyway, while comedy shows like South Park makes offensive or even PDF jokes by putting them in the mouths of fictional bad characters, Gunn doesn't do that. He makes it about himself. He wrote in the first person, gave the character the same name as himself, and centered it on being a PDF file, an addict, an abusive partner.
I haven't read this book in full context, so I can't really speak on much of what was done in the story, but throwing his name on the character isn't concrete proof of actual behavior or attractions. You're gonna need better evidence than this.
The story itself leans into escapism, which only makes sense if it's escapism for him. But you don't write in the first person like that while using your own name, unless you want to explicitly visualize yourself in that situation. This isn't even mentioning the vulgar racism also in the book, where James Gunn in the book frequently and humorously drops hard R's.
Then he probably has a racist character in the story. What kind of argument is this? Are you seriously calling him racist because he wrote a character to be racist? Man, you might as well make that argument against Peacemaker, which, I mean, you would. You'd be the type of person to make that argument, so I don't even know why I said that.
I already know what some of you gun monkeys are going to claim. Oh, it's just a book and not actually him.
Didn't you previously argue that fiction doesn't matter and that Arachnid Youth has a legal age girlfriend, when James Gunn has a legal age wife? Now that's not a defense for his actions or the claims, but I'm highlighting how hypocritical it is for Ultamate Joker of all people to dismiss this counter, because he made it himself.
Where does that leave us? We've got James Gunn's best friend, someone he kept putting in his movies, openly expressing pedophilic tendencies, later proven to be an actual pedophile who also attended one of Gunn's pedophile-themed parties. Maybe we should just end the video here, since to many, that alone will be damning enough.
Well, you previously admitted that the party isn't conclusive evidence, and I've just outlined how song lyrics fall into the same category as Gunn's tweets. If you're making a claim about Gunn being a pedo, you're gonna need better proof than this.
But couple it with Gunn's own remarks and tweets over the years about he himself being a pedophile, just like his best friend Jimmy Urine would do, and it paints a pretty clear picture. But that's not all, folks, because Jimmy Urine isn't the only pedophile Gunn's been associated with. Enter Tom Huddleston, an editor and close friend of Gunn, who, shocker, turned out to be a pedophile too, after having shared some more of those obscene jokes on pedophilia with Gunn. While Huddleston never officially attended one of Gunn's parties, his connection with Gunn may be equally disturbing, especially when you find out what Huddleston was ultimately arrested and convicted for. Well, Huddleston posted a video titled "Prepubescent Girls Touching Themselves," which, yeah, is as sick as it sounds, and guess who reposted it on their blog, calling it the greatest thing they'd ever seen? James Gunn. Oh, just a joke, right? For one, what an interesting and quite recurring thing for Gunn to joke about. Do you know another thing that is recurring though? That the people Gunn does these pedophilic things with as jokes keep getting in trouble with authorities, because Huddleston was later arrested for and convicted of possession and distribution of CSAM.
So your next set of evidence is that Gunn reposted a joke onto his site, which is no different from his behavior on Twitter that we've criticized. And to be clear, if this is in fact real, yes, this is gross, and I wouldn't blame someone for refusing to trust Gunn after he posted stuff like that. At the same time, I'd like to believe he has moved on from that behavior, but if there is evidence that he lied about changing, I would criticize that as well. But all you've shown here are jokes that he made or posted, not actual behavior. Notice that with the case of the Jimmy Urine guy, it seems like evidence was put out against him in 2021, meaning they didn't have anything conclusive in the past. That is, if I'm to assume they're even recounting this correctly. So, until that happens to Gunn, I'm not concluding the things you're concluding.
Now, you can argue,
Well, you can't know what your friends are up to.
sure, that's fair, but if the things you constantly talk about, host parties on, and make media based on, just happens to be the exact thing your friends keep getting arrested for years later for realsies, don't be surprised when people start putting two and two together.
But you're not giving concrete proof. You're trying to make a leap in logic to get to the endpoint without the evidence needed to get there. And I can just as easily argue that many of his friends haven't been convicted, so they could be innocent as far as we know, such as Zack Snyder. And you've acknowledged that stuff like the party isn't conclusive evidence. You need to actually show evidence of his behavior or attractions, which you haven't done.
And here's the thing, you don't always have to be the one who commits the act to be culpable. There's such things as thought crimes. If you're constantly glorifying something, especially something as sick as pedophilia, around people who are actually doing it or end up doing it, then you're part of the problem.
Again, notice the language. He says actually doing it or end up doing it, which isn't something he can say about James Gunn, nor does he provide evidence of Gunn knowing about this before everyone else did.
Getting back on track with James Gunn, while this kind of systemic racism is not his fault per se, he's definitely a racist himself.
Whoa, that's a pretty big accusation.
You might be thinking, but is it really though? Because James Gunn not only hosted a pedo-themed party, but also hosted a Confederate-themed one, where they would dress up as racist stereotypes and put up Confederate flags associated with the slavery and subjugation of the African people.
Well, it's all jokes.
Doesn't change the fact that hosting such a party is deeply problematic and really only one step away from a blackface party.
I agree, it's problematic, and I imagine the Gaming Rift would say the same. But like with my example earlier, I wouldn't call someone who makes bad jokes about rape a rape apologist or a rapist based on problematic jokes made about the subject. The same logic applies here.
Which, let's be honest here, he probably hosted already, but without taking pictures given his track record and sense of humor. Just to clarify, this is me going out on a limb and inferring that he actually hosted one based on his pattern of behavior. So don't come at me acting like I'm presenting speculation as proof, because even if I won't conclusively claim something I can't back up with solid evidence, I'm going to give you the evidence so that you can decide what to make of it yourself, if you disagree with some of my inferences.
So, you admit that what you're presenting is inconclusive and based on speculation, which means that Joker's claim at the beginning isn't backed by conclusive evidence. And to be clear, I don't have a problem with having suspicions for how sincere Gunn is about his intentions. However, not only is Ultimate Joker making definitive claims about him, but he's using said claims as a basis for his false accusations against myself and others. If Gunn gets exposed for being attracted to children or abusing them, I will publicly shit on him for this. But I'm not going to do so based on speculative reasoning.
And yeah, I'm biased here.
So, you fully admit that you're approaching this from a biased perspective, rather than one based on concrete evidence. I mean, you didn't need to tell us that for us to know, by the way.
If you've made it this far and you're still not swayed by everything we've gone over, then I don't want you anywhere near my siblings, cousins, nephews, nieces, or by the grace of God, my future kids. Or around any kids at all, for that matter.
This is coming from the guy who was comfortable with having Arachnid Youth in his Discord server when he defended the act of being attracted to babies as long as they're from cartoons. No, I'm not kidding, he actually said this. Take a look. And I'm gonna ask you a series of yes or no questions, and you better answer them as a yes or no. In Spider-Verse, is Mayday a child?
Yeah, she's a baby.
Was she created on a computer?
Yes.
Okay, so let's say there's a creep out there that creates a sexual depiction of her, and someone gets off to that. Is the person who gets off to that a pedophile?
I don't believe they're a pedophile. I just feel
Why?
like they're fucking.
Why?
Because Mayday doesn't exist. I will.
Would
just
you at
believe
least?
they're
Would you?
actually weird.
What?
Would you at least believe that they have pedophilic tendencies? That's a tendency that they're jerking off to something they know as a child.
What would make me believe that if they actually have these attractions towards an actual child?
No,
if they
fuck
don't,
you!
get it
No,
out.
fuck you!
What do you mean it's not normal for a person to have multiple friends that are pedophiles? Could that perhaps say something about the person who does have so many friends that are that way?
Resican, you're associated with Arachnid Youth.
The same guy whose borderline fetish for wide-angle lenses gave us masterpieces like The Flash and those infamous flying shots, whether they be Superman or Adam Warlock. Critics roasted it, fans roasted it, I mean, even the co-creator of Deadpool roasted it. So what does Gunn do when faced with criticism? What he replied to that interviewer was that the image he sees in his head when he sees such criticisms are that of Indians.
Yeah, you're straight up lying because that's not what he said. Here's what he actually said.
You know, I mean, obviously I relate to that. I do tune out most of social media, but every once in a while there'll be somebody who'll say something. It's always the weirdest stuff. It's never what you expect. Some weird thing that I go, God, that guy, I'm gonna, and then I go, I think I might be getting upset about something a 12-year-old in India is saying. You know what I mean? I'm like, let it go.
Gunn isn't saying that his critics are from India. He's saying that in an isolated instance, he might just be getting mad at a 12-year-old from India. The purpose of highlighting the age is that who he's getting mad at isn't fully mature anyway, so it's not worth getting mad over. And likewise, highlighting that they're from India demonstrates the disconnect between the two. This person is so distant from his life that they're located in a country far away from him. So the logic here is that this person is so disconnected from him and his life that it's not worth getting so annoyed by this person, especially if they're a kid. So where did you get the rating that he's saying Indians are bad and are the only people criticizing him? It sounds to me like you wanted to draw the worst meaning possible because, well, you don't like this guy. This argument is so pathetic that even a 12-year-old from Canada who watches Mr. NoobTube Gamer could dismantle it.
It's like me getting told, oh, the judges didn't like your performance, and my first response being, oh, probably some Indian judges didn't like me.
Yeah, because I'm sure we've never seen you attribute all criticism to a specific country or region. I'm sorry, what's this? Superman is expected to pass Man of Steel at the domestic box office tomorrow. Ultimate Joker is seething. Not really though. His entire channel shtick is criticizing first world brainrotism, which is most prevalent in the United States, thus domestic box office and not global. It has been largely rejected at the international box office because, truth be told, only Americans and Westoids care about Batman being too violent or Superman not smiling enough, lol. So that's a worse statement than what James Gunn made because he was talking about an isolated, hypothetical instance. You just straight up said that, well, all Americans and Westoids care about these criticisms towards Zack Snyder's movies. Imagine if James Gunn went, yeah, truth be told, only Indians care about bad CGI and wonky VFX. If he said something like that, you'd be rushing to call him a racist. But that's not what he said, and funnily enough, that's actually what you ended up saying about Americans and Westoids. So, looks like Resikin is a racist or xenophobe by the very logic he's presenting. Whoops.
Well, speaking of younger viewers, this recently popped up in the middle of me editing this video, and it has to be mentioned. After Warner Brothers started pulling Superman from theaters early, as it made an early release on digital due to sales slowing down, James Gunn jumped out in front of things to claim it was due to Peacemaker's release date. As if he couldn't just push back Peacemaker's release if Superman, a multi-million-dollar blockbuster, was actually selling tickets. Anyway, in a statement, James Gunn insisted that fans of the new Superman movie go and watch the new season of Peacemaker, as he said it was very crucial to understanding what was going on in the DCU, as it takes place directly after Superman, and prominently features characters from it like Green Lantern and Hawkgirl. While the announcement raised a few eyebrows given Peacemaker's very inappropriate tone and subject matter, not to mention its R rating, nobody knew how bad it was going to be until the second season actually dropped. That's because it featured an orgy. It's not like it was a quick scare or a throwaway gag. No, it's like a full-on, over a minute sequence with slow motion of people being butt naked and showing everything, every type of body part, in something that the director of a kids movie recommended fans of the kids movie to go watch right after Superman. Because whether you like the movie or not, Superman was objectively a movie that would appeal to kids from the CGI Superdog to the overly goofy tone.
There's no way you think this is a good point. HBO Max has parental controls to prevent children from watching inappropriate content. It's your job as a parent to prevent children from watching inappropriate shows. And it's not just kids who watch Superman, adults watch this movie as well. So when he says fans of Superman will want to take a look at Peacemaker, he is still correct. I mean, I don't know for sure because I haven't seen season 2 outside of the sloppy opening retcon, but regardless, the show isn't marketed for children. This is like criticizing the MCU because they allow Deadpool or Daredevil to be connected to the MCU, when most of their content is PG-13. This is such a desperate argument.
When James Gunn told fans of the new Superman movie to go watch it right after, he didn't specify adults or even point out its R rating.
It literally tells you on HBO Max. It would be in the marketing as well. I'm sorry, does Tom Holland or Charlie Cox need to specify that Daredevil is not for kids every time there's a talk of a potential crossover? Or whenever Hugh Jackman or Ryan Reynolds talk about crossing over with Spider-Man? This is such an idiotic standard. It's no wonder I haven't heard of this until a couple of Snyder cultists decide to make a video on James Gunn.
Which might debatably be fine on paper if it was just as rated R as Penguin was, in tandem with how the rating is displayed on the streaming service. But with how absolutely disgusting the scene was to include in the DC universe, it can't get a pass due to directly being connected to Superman and his friends.
This is such a stupid point, I can't believe what I'm hearing. Being in the same universe doesn't mean ratings are consistent across the board.
All it takes is a kid who liked the movie to see a funny clip of his favorite characters, Green Lantern and Hawkgirl, talking with Peacemaker on YouTube Shorts or TikTok, as two of the many ways, and then want to watch it thinking, wow, I'm going to see more of my favorite characters, only to be permanently traumatized by seeing a house full of naked adults next to a superhero.
You can make this argument with any R-rated superhero content. What the fuck am I listening to? You can argue that kids can be traumatized by the Gore and Logan or the Deadpool movies, which involve the X-Men, even showing the team from the X-Men prequels, and of course, the MCU itself in Deadpool and Wolverine.
The recent Deadpool and Wolverine movie really had me thinking about it. It was a great movie that had enough deep themes going for it that was honestly mostly carried by Wolverine. Not too many cons I can pick with it apart from a few minor plot holes that could be found, and me not liking how a relationship was handled, but I would call it a very solid movie that I personally thought was possibly better than every Spider-Man movie outside of Sam Raimi's.
Oh, Deadpool and Wolverine is a great movie, you say? Well, it shows Wade Wilson banging Vanessa, from a montage of constant banging in Deadpool 1. It also has a scene at the strip club, where so many of them are just butt naked there. The Deadpool movies constantly make jokes or references. They're also really graphic and violent, which can be shocking for a kid to watch. I don't think you actually care about the standard you've set, you only care about it because it could maybe make James Gunn look bad, when all it really does is make you look like an idiot.
Gunn and the people responsible for this degeneracy know that it's easy for a parent to be misled by superheroes in spandex from a PG-13 movie despite the R rating.
So then don't make R-rated superhero content by this logic. This is a really stupid argument. Stop making it.
What makes it even worse is that a parent might not even know it was shown to them.
Then that's their fault for not restricting their child's HBO Max.
God knows YouTubers that kids watch aren't going to call it out either.
Kinda like how you didn't call out Deadpool and Wolverine for connecting itself to the MCU. It's almost like you have an insincere standard, and the reason we don't criticize this is because it's a stupid fucking criticism.
The fact of the matter remains that he did do those things, he did say these things, and he is associated with these kind of things and people. So if we're able to say, oh, I love James Gunn as a person.
God bless James Gunn.
Those videos are defending his movie, and there shouldn't be a problem with that. Unless you're one of those idiots that say, well, I don't like the person who made it, therefore it's bad and you shouldn't defend it. Because that would mean I can't defend Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, let alone his portrayal of Harry. Oh wait, he did make a video defending Harry in Spider-Man 3. I guess that means you defended James Franco's actions that he admitted to through his apology. Oh hey, Resican liked this video. Oh, and Ultimate Joker hearted a comment speaking positively about James Franco. Looks like your morals are inconsistent.
Instead of saying something like, well, I like his movies, but always prefacing it with the fact that he's a freak, a sicko.
I'm talking about the work, not the person. I'm not obligated to give a laundry list of bad things the creators have done just to review or defend their work.
As people do with actors like Ezra Miller, who I like, but will still acknowledge that he's a little messed up upstairs.
Well, I don't discuss Ezra Miller's outside activities when I talk about the writing of the Snyder Cut or the Flash movie, because that's not relevant to what I'm talking about.
But nope, if you give any sort of criticism towards James Gunn, then you're somehow evil and...
That is a swift straw man. First of all, I do criticize many of the things you've shown about James Gunn. Your evidence against me was me making videos defending Superman and not talking about James Gunn as a person. That is not an argument.
It's actually very bad with most of the chronically online parts of the superhero fandom that Resican and I witnessed firsthand with various superhero channels, or more so, Spider-Man channels for some reason, that straight up defended James Gunn's behavior.
No, I
You
didn't.
understand?
No, I
You
did
said
not.
that
Show me that. Show me that. Show me that right
All
now.
right.
And called his vile acts just jokes, despite Resican informing them on most of the information that he stated within this video. If you remember what I said near the start of the video on cancel culture, these Spidey YouTubers instead went after us over some person in our Discord server who made non-safe for work content of animated characters outside of our server, and tried to claim we defended it, when in reality we just didn't care.
Ooh, that is a swift lie by omission. You claimed that these were just characters, and, assuming they were of age, that would be very silly of us to do. There's just one small problem. Gwen is 15 years old in Into the Spider-Verse, and you were there when I told you this.
Well, I wouldn't really agree with that if a canonical age is like known to be like a minor.
And he very specifically did that version.
It makes it even worse as well if it's specifically referenced as being Into the Spider-Verse, since she's even younger than in Across. Like in Across, I'm fairly certain she's like 16, 17, but in like Into the Spider-Verse, she's specifically 15, which makes it even worse that it's specifically that version.
Okay, last thing.
Also, there was other characters that I can mention. There's also other characters I can mention. There's like one of them who's like, what is it, Jenny the Teenage Robot? Which is like another one.
Are we talking about a fucking robot?
I don't know if you paid attention. We just mentioned Into the Spider-Verse, if you listen.
Yeah, you know, I know, but...
So, you are a liar. You omitted very key information that changes the situation you've established. Because if you were to give the full context, which I gladly did earlier in this video, you would be stuck with having to explain to people why you would ever associate with someone who justifies sexualizing child characters.
As that crap had no real-world consequence, despite Resikin and I not being in favor of that behavior and honestly finding it weird.
Yeah, but I ran through a series of questions for you to answer, so by saying this, you're implying that you don't care to keep someone around who has an attraction to children. I do have one final question. So, let's say
$300 million. No, sorry.
If you were to either create or get off to art that depicts a child in a sexual manner, do you think this indicates an attraction to underage children?
Wait, what?
If you create art, let me ask it again. If you create art or you get off to children that are in drawings or whatever, that are clearly underage, right? So would you say that if you're into that kind of stuff, even if it is fictional, does this say something about if you're attracted to children?
Yeah, it's rather odd behavior, but as I said, I would not put that in the same tier as what Pebble explained, but yeah, odd behavior that I do not approve
Okay,
of.
And I can add on to that.
I will end this off by saying, and Jack can say whatever he wants afterwards. I'm going to end off those series of questions and say, Arachnid Youth, he definitely defended that kind of stuff, and he also engages in it, so I would say he falls under that category. Jack,
He's also willing to lie about it, which is
That's
indicating
true.
like what he thinks.
We did prove he has a history of lying.
But not something worthy of severe cancellation in comparison to real-world events that could or should lead to arrest or at the very least an investigation, like with James Gunn and PDF file-themed parties that they defended. Totally consistent morals, right?
That's great, Joker. Now show us defending the party that he threw, because you're not gonna find a shred of evidence of that because that never happened.
Anyway, the YouTuber who likes to pretend to be the moral police in question is none other than the biggest response video slop maniac, SK, who, as you can see here, excused James Gunn for hosting pedophile-themed parties by saying that everything he did is fine now because Gunn apologized. Only after Resikin and I called him out on his disgusting behavior.
It's like you take pride in selective reading. If you look at the message, I open with, "Nobody said what James Gunn did is okay."
Did you read it?
You can acknowledge someone's apology while believing what they did was wrong. I mean, isn't that the point of an apology after all? And saying he seems to have changed since then is not a defense for his actions. The reason I bring this up is because I have nothing to argue with if he seemingly conceded. Which is funny because if you look at my video where I debated Arachnid Youth, he specifically admitted to us that he lied about whether or not he stood by defending people who sexualize child characters out of ignorance and has changed since. As far as we knew at the time he lied about this, he himself never engaged in that behavior, but simply didn't think it was that bad for others to do. And after losing an argument to us, he said he conceded that we were right. So of course we stopped making that point because the point of the argument was to change his mind. The more you bring up the Arachnid Youth situation, the more consistent you make us look. If Arachnid Youth had actually changed, we wouldn't be speaking on this. But because he hasn't, we have a reason to speak on this. Do you get the pattern, or are you going to repeat the same stupid points you've been making?
But actions speak louder than words, and the recent nonsense with Peacemaker played by John Cena, one of the most recognizable and beloved people to children all around the world, was in spandex and at an orgy. What that tells me is that Gunn's sense of humor, which is really just a reflection of the kind of person that he is, hasn't really changed at all.
I'm sorry, how does making R-rated superhero content prove he still makes the jokes that he made in the past?
All that being said, he never apologized for the parties or his associations with those other files, not even condemning his friends.
So in his apology, he specifically mentioned his humor in the past. He didn't only specify the tweets. So he did in fact apologize for any and all instances of him doing this. Also, how do you know that he didn't condemn his friends? Are you suggesting that he was on their side when they got exposed? Where's your evidence of that? And James doesn't need to apologize just because he happened to be friends with people who turned out to be bad. Those weren't his actions. You take accountability for the things that you do.
Even if he did apologize, the things that James Gunn stated and wrote over the years are not at all things that celebrities should be able to get away with.
He didn't get away with it. He got fired from Marvel and faced lots of backlash for it. Just because he was given another chance after people believed he had changed doesn't mean he got away with it. It's not like he committed a crime and just got out of prison.
As many have been condemned, fired, or blacklisted for far, far less.
And if that's true, then this isn't fair. I haven't looked into these individuals in full to know, and given that this is Ultimate Joker talking, I can't take him at his word, but if we assume he is telling the truth, then yes, I agree, that's totally unfair.
Funny enough, if these kind of people think that drawings are enough to call someone a file,
which you've directly conceded to when we spoke about this,
then Gunn has that type of dirt on him too, since he has a list of top DC women he wants to bang, which includes heroes generally portrayed as teenagers from the team called the Teen Titans, such as Starfire and Raven.
So, I verified what you were saying, and to everyone's surprise, it turns out that you made a false comparison. Starfire is at least 19 years old, based on a comic from 1982, where it's Cyborg's 19th birthday. They state that it has been 7 years since Starfire has been home, and Wally remarks on how she was kidnapped at age 12. She's at least 19, and this is while Dick Grayson was still Robin. And Dick states that he was Robin 10 years ago in a 2007 comic. So no, these characters were adults by the time James Gunn would have made that post in 2011. Now as for Arachnid Youth, he didn't simply say Gwen Stacy when she's an adult in the comics. He said Gwen from Into the Spider-Verse. He specified the iteration, the one where she's 15 years old. I don't know how many times or how many different ways I have to explain this to you, but I'm gonna try again because it has to get through your head somehow. Of all of the iterations that he could have used for his Gunner art, he chose the 15-year-old. I'm gonna repeat this again because it doesn't seem like you understand this. Out of all the Gwen Stacy iterations he could have chosen, he chose the 15-year-old. Did you get that? I'm gonna tell you again in case you didn't get it. Of all of the Gwen Stacy adaptations he could have chosen, he chose the 15-year-old. There's no dancing around this. He is a weirdo, and so are you for defending him.
To be honest, if this piece of info was all that we had on James Gunn, then we wouldn't have made this video or gave any commentary on it, unlike others.
I may have my issues with Colin, but at least he doesn't defend being attracted to child characters or making sexual art of them.
As this, among other similar scenarios of Twitter logic, objectively doesn't fit any legal definition of being a pedophile.
I do have one final question. So let's say if
$300 million. Oh, sorry.
If you were to either create or get off to art that depicts a child in a sexual manner, do you think this indicates an attraction to underage children?
Wait, what?
If you create art, let me ask it again. If you create art or you get off to children that are in drawings or whatever, that are clearly underage, right? So would you say that if you're into that kind of stuff, even if it is fictional, does this say something about if you're attracted to children?
Yeah, it's rather odd behavior.
Or something that warrants a legal investigation, despite the behavior being low-key messed up and worthy of condemnation if it becomes too repetitive of a joke or has real-life consequences, like with Gunn.
I'm glad to hear you're not concerned with the implications of someone being attracted to child characters and justifying it by saying it's just drawings. Anyway, this is an interesting photo you chose because you claim that this is a 17-year-old, which, by the way, is lying about what we said because I told Ultimate Joker on the stream that it was a 15-year-old. He changed the age to 17 for some mysterious reason. Regardless, I find it strange that he looked for a photo like this of someone he proclaimed is 17. Or does he have this image on standby? Here's a video where Ultimate Joker has this exact same image in the thumbnail. How long ago was this? This video was made 2 years ago. So you're telling me that Ultimate Joker proclaims this to be a 17-year-old, and he provably has this image on standby for at least 2 years. Now that is interesting to me. Oh, and in case I need to clarify this once again, I never defended James Gunn hosting the party. I can't see where Colin has done that either. And you claim I'm a shill for James Gunn's work as a motivation. I gave Superman a 5 out of 10. That's an average rating. This is largely because of the plot holes in the movie and Lex Luthor's ridiculous planning. I gave it an average score, but I'm a shill apparently. Fine, whatever. I gave The Suicide Squad a 5 out of 10 the last time I watched it. I noticed some continuity issues with the DCEU alongside plot issues. Is that not enough? Okay, well, I also criticized the opening of Peacemaker Season 2 because the retconning is just sloppy. It's convoluted and creates a bit of a mess for the continuity of the DCU. Canon is ridiculously confusing to follow, but sure, call me a shill because I criticize people like Ben Shapiro, EFAP, and others who make mistakes in their criticisms. God forbid that I don't think this movie is completely bad despite having issues with it.
But there you go, more SK hypocrisy where this little chronically online weasel snake bitch doesn't bring any of this up with James Gunn, even though he has like 10 or more videos shilling for his mid-at-best popcorn flick movies.
Why do I need to talk about James Gunn's past behavior when I'm talking about his movie? I'm not defending James Gunn the person, I'm defending his Superman story.
It's almost as if he just tries to make up random labels to condemn other people when they're on the receiving end of his slop response videos that make up the vast majority of his content.
What labels did I place to condemn people? I didn't condemn the guy behind the Spider-Man PS4 propaganda video, I just responded to the arguments. I didn't condemn EFAP either when responding to them on Superman. Like, can you show clips of me where I'm condemning people and show evidence of it being unjustified if I am?
As he himself looks for baby MJ pictures to send, just like the chronically online weirdo that he is.
I brought up the baby because you said you don't care about drawings. You responded to me highlighting the fact that Arachnid Youth defended the act of to cartoon babies by saying that you don't care about drawings. Do you think this interaction makes you look good?
We have another mostly reaction video slop Spider-Man YouTuber called Colin who said he was fine enjoying the movies of James Gunn despite the gun info we informed him on, even though he's went after a guy for cartoon drawings, just like SK. Totally consistent morals once again.
Stop making me defend Colin. He didn't make his video because Arachnid Youth made cartoon drawings. You're downplaying this and lying by omission. He made his video because Arachnid Youth not only defended people who create and get off to drawings of child characters, but he creates that material himself.
You can catch him saying this in a video response to us when Restican and I interviewed a Discord member of theirs called Kinoflex, who claimed Colin and SK used real CSAM with blurred faces to lure in PDF files.
Alright, what's up, Jack? Say hi to the camera. Or Kinoflex.
Hey guys, what's up? Hey guys,
Yo.
what's up?
So just wanted to ask real quick. So you remember the Ultimate Joker video where like you had like a part in it and you were like saying stuff about, you know, Colin and I about the whole Arachnid Youth thing, right?
Yeah.
Just to, you know, confirm, I know we've talked about this many times, but I would like the audience to make sure they're caught up. You don't stand by what was said in that video, right?
Yeah, I no longer do. And if you watch the stream, like we pretty much sorted everything out. Like between us, we both acknowledge that Colin is an asshole. And we kind of just put our bad blood behind us. And yeah. I found out afterwards that Arachnid Youth did some other stuff that caused him to be alienated from his own community. So I decided to stop defending him because I didn't get the full picture. Gotcha. And I also just thought that it really wasn't a hill worth dying on.
Okay, yeah, that's good to hear.
For more of what is likely themselves, I see. Lastly, we have Gollum Grift, the gaming Rift, who excused James Gunn's acts like his parties and tweets about touching kids and saw the drawings as worse for some reason.
Well, for starters, James Gunn didn't create material involving child characters. Arachnid Youth did that while inserting his OC in there. Call me crazy, but that is worse than those disgusting jokes James Gunn made. Gunn doesn't believe it's actually okay to have attractions to children. Arachnid Youth creates material with child characters and argues that it's okay to create and to. When the gaming rift separates the art from the artist, he's not excusing the artist, he's arguing for the art, though in Arachnid Youth's case, we know what the art in question is for him.
Said separate the art from the artist, which is a statement I guess, but if you can say that for James Gunn of all people who has next to no rivals in bad celebrity track records, other than Diddy, then you have no right trying to morally cancel another person if James Gunn is fine with you.
I mean, James Gunn isn't fine with me or Rift. We don't even know the guy. We never defended his past behavior. And again, in Arachnid Youth's case, the art in question, well, I've shown it enough times. I think we all get it by now.
These YouTubers are all fine with James Gunn despite knowing what we said about him.
I just love the wording here. Despite knowing what we said about him. Yes, because what you say should just be accepted immediately. What you say isn't concrete proof. That's Jan's argument, you nutjob. He's questioning the reasoning you're giving, and I understand that's offensive to you, and I'm very sorry that offends you, but he cares about these details making complete sense, which should matter when making claims.
These screenshots provided are from a Discord group chat that they put us in and tried adding us back into despite us trying to leave originally because we were genuinely disgusted by their no-life loser PDF file defending.
I mean, I'm not the one who defends 15-year-old characters being in art. That's your buddy.
Like all of these YouTubers I just listed off and a few other just as insignificant YouTubers shown here are moral jokes. This shit is inexcusable, and everyone who knows this but can't acknowledge it as they try to cancel others should be ashamed and are irrefutably hypocrites who don't actually care about any social issues if PDF-philia can get a slide.
Dude, I can't take you seriously after your embarrassing display. This is just pure comedy.
Like, we could give the benefit of the doubt to some content creators or people who may actually not know this information, such as, I don't know, a funny guy like Demigod, who we may not see eye to eye with on every take, but we would assume that he would condemn this behavior if he knew. I really hope he sees this, but anyway, if there's one thing this video should prove, it's that you shouldn't always rely on mainstream sources to get your information, when those sources have been shown to be biased multiple times.
One of your sources was Resikin, who literally admitted he was biased in your video.
As moral principles don't go in tandem with being a big organization or content creator most of the time. Definitely don't rely on most YouTubers either, like all the low integrity YouTubers I just listed off who are even worse in their biases, as even the news organizations have enough subtlety to not defend or downplay it like this innocent, heroic Spider-Man channel did. Point is, you should rely on yourself to do your own research on what you decide to talk about. I don't know everything, but if I'm going to talk about someone, whether it be praising them or giving them deserved backlash, I'll do a moderate amount of digging at the very least, like I do to a heavy degree with most of my videos.
Great speech, man. Great speech. Your video's gonna be a laughing stock, and the confidence is killing me.
And before anyone says something like, oh, if there's no case against him, then he's completely innocent. The corrupt criminal justice system does not dictate who did that. It's the actions of those people that do.
Oh, kinda like Arachnid Youth, despite the fact you tried to argue that he's innocent because he doesn't have a legal case against him, when our point was about his attractions and creations, and what he defends, and not whether he broke the law.
At the end of the day, we all have a responsibility to be conscious, at the very least.
Is that why you ignored me when I linked numerous sources of evidence against Arachnid Youth?
And be better people after learning things we weren't originally familiar with.
You told Insomniac developers and fans to kill themselves over Spider-Man.
Now we'll wait for these channels to make their 20th response video where they'll have to admit we were right on what we informed them of up to 5 months ago.
Anyway, check out our live streams dismantling these arguments.
Which they won't do because of stubbornness, which will then force them to double down and defend a PDF file like they already have, as they cut out parts of this video to make themselves look less horrible.
I showed every attempt you made to provide evidence. I'm sorry that it offends you that you failed on just about every level.
Next time, try writing a better story!
What an embarrassing video. I don't think I've ever seen someone humiliate themselves this badly on just about every level. Ultimate Joker is the new lolcow, it seems. But yeah, jokes aside, this was a very fun response to a very silly video. We'll get back to discussing actual media very soon. See you later.